It was just a regular day at the Canfield High School. Pinkie was standing by her locker with Rarity and Applejack. They were talking about the upcoming weekend, about their plans for the weekend. It turned out everyone else had plans except for Pinkie. Rarity was going to work at her store, and Fluttershy was going to work at the animal shelter because one of the volunteers had called in sick, and they needed some extra help. Applejack was going to help around the farm the whole weekend. Rainbow was going to be outside of town for a couple of days with the family, and Twilight was going to do some studying along with Sunset. And that would give her to spend time for herself, because this was going to be the very first time in a while that Pinkie would have time off from the cafe which she usually works at. Sometimes she works sometimes during the weekdays and even on the weekends. But this one was going to be the very first weekend that she had time off. And since her friends had already some plans had been taken care of, she had no idea what to do this weekend. But even though Applejack kind of said, maybe then they could somehow maybe meet up during this weekend and do something together, except for Rainbow. But Pinkie said that she didn't have to be forcing her friends to give up the plans that had already been made for this weekend. She can maybe do something with her family, maybe bake, play games with them, or maybe find out if she could spend time with some other friends along from school. And during the school day, though, everything was just normal. Pinkie and Romer from among her friends had this summer class, math, science, gym class, something like that. But during lunch break at the cafeteria, Pinkie was sitting with her friends and they were talking about it during the weekend. But then she overheard from behind her was Derpy. Derpy was talking about that she needed some help to look after her sister Dinky. It turned out her parents was out of town for this week, and she has been getting to do this. She had been given opportunity to look after her sister for a whole weekend. But then it later turned out she had been called from her part-time job. She had been working this weekend. And she couldn't leave her sister alone the whole weekend. She had looked around if any of her friends would be willing to send out to look after her sister for a couple of hours, but most of the she had asked had all said no, they couldn't. They had other plans in already. And since their usual babysitter they usually have for Dinky was also out of town for this weekend, and there weren't any other options that Derpy had. But since Pinkie overheard that, she thought maybe she could look after Dinky. After all, Derpy is a close friend of hers, and Dinky loves Pinkie. They had so much fun together. So Pinkie decided to ask Derpy after they both had left the cafeteria. So when she left the cafeteria, she was sweating outside. When Derpy came out, Pinkie walked up to her and asked if she needed some help by looking after Dinky, because she overheard her and she was willing to look after her sister while she was working. And Derpy felt grateful. Then Pinkie asked from which time she is going to looking after and how long. She said the whole weekend from Friday to Sunday and from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. So, but then Derpy didn't ask if that would be any problem. But Pinkie said no, there wouldn't be any problem, since she had been looking after other kids before, so there wasn't any problem. After all, since Stinky loves her, they have so much great time together when they hang out. So once again, Derpy was so grateful for that. So Pinkie said that she will be there at 4 p.m. on Friday to look after Dinky. And when Friday actually came, Pinkie arrived around 4 p.m. Dinky had already been told that Pinkie will look after her. When she arrived, once again though, Derpy had tried to convince Pinkie to take some payment for looking after her sister. But even though Pinkie had refused to take any payment for looking after Dinky. She only doing it for fun and that she was willing to help her friend in need. Even though once again Dinky the Derpy tried to convince Pinkie to take some money, but still Pinkie refused. But during the when just after that Pinkie and Derpy left, both of them actually had a great time. They watched some movies and even watched some TV, played board games, and even played some cards, and just having a great time. They weren't even outside when it was still bright out like daylight, and they was just goofing around and just having a great time. Even Pinkie made lasagna for them both as for dinner. Derpy had told Pinkie that that Dinky is supposed to be in bed around 9 p.m. just in case, but since the weekend, so yeah. So Pinkie had promised that she will be in bed around as close as to 9 p.m. So even when Dinky went to bed around 9 p.m., there wasn't any problem because she was already tired. Around 10:15 p.m., Derpy arrived home. She asked Pinkie if there has been any problems during the time when she was looking after her sister, but she said no. They had actually had a great time. There's a lot of fun done. So Pinkie promised she would be there already by next day around 4 p.m. again. By next day, Pinkie arrived as close to 4 p.m. She gave Derpy gave her some money that they could order some pizza or something as if they didn't want to do so. But Pinkie asked Derpy what kind of pizza should they order. Maybe one of Pinky's favorites. So she didn't have any problem with that. So around during that time, both Pinkie and Dinky went to the park. So since the park itself was very close by, just maybe 2 blocks away, and had a great time there at the playground and just spent time. They even went back home to watch some TV, and around 7 p.m., Pinkie called for a pizza and they ordered a pineapple pizza, which turned out to be Dinky's absolute favorite. But Pinkie had no problem for having a pineapple on a pizza. It turned out to be even one of Pinkie's favorites as well. Even though they had a great time, even when around 10:30 p.m., Derpy arrived and she apologized to Pinkie that she was so late because there was some traffic on the way back home. But Pinkie said it was no problem because she was just having a great time. She said the Dinky had just behaved and was just a great kid. She had listened to Pinkie all the time, has a great time playing games and then the Derpy said that she had to look after Dinky also on Sunday because the parents were supposed to be back home on Sunday, but they would be back on for not until on Monday, just a day later. But then Pinkie said that it wouldn't be any problem, so she agreed to do so. And during the Sunday morning and noon, Pinkie was excited to once again to look after Pink Dinky for Derpy. There was a lot of fun they had. And when Pinkie arrived around 4 p.m., Dinky and Derp and Pinkie went to the park once again to just have a great time. They went to the playground and even met some of their friends there and just having a great time. They went back to the house, watched some TV, played some games, and even made some dinner together. They made some pasta together, just having a great time. Then, around 10:15 p.m., Derpy arrived home. Once again, she had asked if there was any problem, but nothing. Derpy was just happy to see that her sister was just having a great time with Pinkie. But then, even when Pinkie was about to leave, Derpy then said, why can't you take any payment for helping me? I mean, I'm offering you pay you for that. But Pinkie smiled and said, I'm helping someone that I really care about. And I wouldn't even take money from you for that. And especially someone as cute as you are. That made, of course, Derpy blushing and smiled in his face and They both hugged and Pinkie left. But the rest of the next week, Pinkie was back to normal as nothing has happened. But when Derpy looked at her each single sometimes, she started blushing even more, even though Pinkie herself didn't even pay much attention to that at first. But even during the on Wednesday, things was going to change entirely for both Derpy and Pinkie. Because just during the lunch break, both Pinkie and Derpy were sitting outside on the courtyard, just happy enjoying the day before the next class, when Derpy walks up to Pinkie and asks if she could sit down. She said yes. They just sit there for a couple of minutes in silence, and then Derpy asks Pinkie what she if she's thinking about something serious, something like that. But she said no. And then she asked Pinkie if she maybe want to go out with her on a date. And while Pinkie looked at Derpy, she saw that she was shaking or nervous and she was blushing a lot more than usually do. But Pinkie smiled at that and said, I would love that. Pinkie actually said yes, she wanted to go out with Derpy. So they both decide maybe they can go to the movies on Friday since the parents will be home and look after Dinky this time. So they both agreed. They both gave each other a hug and went back to school, and back to class. And even though Pinkie didn't even tell any of her this to her friends, not even until Friday afternoon, when they both their friends asked Pinkie what she had any plans for the day, for the Friday afternoon, when she said that in fact she's having a date with Derpy. All her friends just had their jaw dropped and looked at her. Wait, you are going on a date with Derpy? When did that happen? Said Rainbow, really surprised. On Wednesday? Wait, she asked you out Wednesday? But you didn't tell us? Said Twilight. Well, I want to keep it a secret, said Pinkie and smiled and looked up at the sky. Well, Sugar Cube, we know that you're having a great time with her. She's a great friend. And who knows, maybe this might be serious, said Applejack. Yeah, you may be right about that, said Pinkie. And they all said goodbye, and Pinkie went home. She decided to get ready to around since they were going to the movies around 4 p.m. And she got ready and drove to Derpy's home and picked her up, and they went to the movies. They just having a great time. They both decided to choose a comedy movie, and they had a great time. They both laughed so much they could even barely talk or barely breathe about this. But they're having such a great time with them. Pinkie, even after this been left the movies, was getting hungry, so they both decided to go to this nearby diner and just grab something to eat. At this diner, both Derpy and Pinkie talked about the movie itself, like what parts was funniest and what other part was not the most boring, what they thought about the characters, and this talking about the movie made them both laugh and realize they had so much great time at it. But then Derpy asked, what you thought about our date so far? She smiled and blushed a little bit shuddering. Pinkie said that she had a great time. And in fact, it's already the first time she had a date, and she would love to go more on dates with Derpy in future. And in fact, she said even she wanted like to be her girlfriend, despite they had only been on one single date. But Derpy said yes, and she liked that. And after they left the diner, it was already around 7 p.m., but they still didn't want to go home. So they decided to walk around in town, just having a good more time before they had to leave. Around 8 p.m., there were time for both to go to home, so it's getting dark, and Pinkie threw home Derpy, and they used a small talk in the car back home to Derpy's home. And there, they shared the very first kiss. And they said that they would like to go out to see each other tomorrow. And they did so. Because then on Saturday, they went to the park having a picnic. They were just having a great time. They both had realized they were so much meant to be with each other. If it wasn't for Pinkie had been looking after Pinkie for sister for Derpy, they may not have been had maybe not have been considered to be have any romantic feelings for each other. But at least Pinkie was happy to be dating Derpy. After only about the next week, everyone at school was completely aware of Derpy and Pinkie being a couple. They had this great support from all their friends. They were just happy to see that Pinkie had found someone to be with. Then, after being dating for about a month, when the summer vacation became start, they find out there was going to be a carnival at the town. And Pinkie asked Derpy if she wanted to go with it, to get her to date, which Derpy said yes, but though she had to bring her sister with her, Dinky, but Pinkie had no problem with that. But when it came to the park under this carnival, Dinky left them to go see and spend time with Apple Bloom, Scootaloo, and Sweetie Bloom, and Sweetie Belle, as they had promised. And they promised to look after her, though, since even those were even along with Big Mac, her older brother. But they actually had a great time at this carnival. Enjoying with cotton candy, enjoying some of the rides, and even just having a great, perfect, romantic day together. If Pinkie had even thought about this carnival as a date, she had no idea what else had been asked to. But even after all this, Pinkie herself was really excited to be with someone like Derpy. But then something that happened when the winter had arrived to town. One day, Pinkie arrived at school, and she was expected to see Derpy by her locker by the morning, but she wasn't even there. So maybe she thought maybe she was in either somewhere else in school. But when she walked around, she didn't see Theater Derpy anywhere. Not even in the first class that she usually shared. But when she asked Twilight and Applejack if they heard anything about Derpy, and it turned out Derpy wasn't even in school. She was in fact at home. She was sick with the flu for a whole week. She was feeling so terrible. She was having a high fever and feeling miserable. But when Pinkie found out, she was a little bit sad at hearing that her own girlfriend was home and not feeling so well. And even though that she wanted to go see her, her parents wouldn't have let her inside, not even talk to Derpy because since she didn't want to make her feel the flu herself. But even after school, though, when she had found out, she got home. She immediately called Derpy on her phone, and they started to FaceTime. Even though then Pinkie saw her of how Derpy felt, but seeing Pinkie on the phone on FaceTime made Derpy smile, and for somehow she felt a bit better, a little more energetic, and they start talking for maybe an hour or so, just having something that Derpy wanted to know exactly what has been happening in school. She wasn't been there for about a week. They actually had a great time, and Derpy was told by Pinkie after she's getting better, she will take her out to a restaurant to to cheer her up after they had even seen each other for about a week. And Derpy smiled as if that would have been a great idea. So when Derpy went back to health again, both Pinkie and Derpy went to this restaurant that she had arranged a table for. There at first, there was a lot of things where they talked about, like what happened in Hansel, what was happening in school for over the week when Derpy been gone. But nonetheless, they had a great time. And Derpy was told by Pinkie that the school was going to have a baking contest just before schools, winter holiday, and she thought maybe they could sign up as a team as for the contest. Derpy smiled and said that wouldn't be as a bad idea. After all, both of them loved to bake muffins or even cupcakes. But then they came to real thought what to bake. After all, since every team was allowed to bake almost anything that was going to be in the prize. And the first prize was in fact a whole day off from school just the day before the winter holiday was going to start. And they tried though, they want to win this, even they want to win. But even though they knew there was maybe as a 50-50 chance they might not win, but as long as they both had a great time trying, that would even stop them. So on that day when the baking contest was taking place, they gave all the best efforts to make it happen. But unfortunately, they didn't win. But they ended up on the second place to the winner to be Fluttershy and Twilight for some reason. But they both still had a great time despite they happened end up on the second place. But as a second place winner though, they still had at least they could have and leave school about 2 hours earlier on at any day they wanted to. So they decided to leave the school 2 hours earlier on the day when it's happening on winter holiday was going to start. And that was the perfect thing to do. But then during the winter holiday, they spent as much time they could. Since Derpy and her family was gone away for the vacation, or just spend time with its own extended family and the next time over. So Pinkie and Derpy wouldn't be able to spend much time together. So they spent as much time as they could together. Just only about a few days before the holiday was on the particular Christmas. Per Pinkie and Derpy, they spent as much time they could on that day. Gave each other a gift, and Pinkie actually gave Derpy a book of new recipes of muffins and cupcakes, while Pinkie got the same thing from Derpy. But they had some. When they opened the gift, they laughed and said they gave almost the same type of book, but they laughed about it, but they enjoyed it. But then, something did happen. The day when just before Derpy was about to come home, she got a phone call, and it was in fact from Applejack, informing her that Pinkie was in hospital. She was in serious condition. When Derpy heard that, she was shocked, terrified. She asked for details. What happened? Why was Pinkie in the hospital in the first place? And how serious conditions is she? What caused her to end up in the hospital in the first place? All that. She tried to make more details, but Pinkie, Applejack, didn't have so much details that she can be given. But what she told Derpy shocked her even more to the core. It turned out that Pinkie was just out for a walk just a couple of days after New Year's Eve when this car was approaching at normal speed, but suddenly it tried to brake on this red light, but it somehow lost its grip on the ice, and this car itself was steering rather not rather from forward, but somehow to the right, and hit Pinkie right as fast as they could. She flew on the hood on the car and back on the ground. People around the area saw what happened, but the man of the driver, he said to the police that he tried to stop the car, and they could even see there was a lot of ice on the road, and that the car itself, they tried as hard as possible they could to stop the car, but it was pointless. So he wasn't even charged of anything. But Pinkie, She was unconscious after the hit. She was bleeding a lot. It wasn't until only that past 2 hours later when one of her sisters, Marble, had called Applejack. Marble and Applejack were close friends and they usually talked from time to time, but when Marble had told Applejack about Pinkie, Applejack was terrified. She immediately called her friends over FaceTime. They had no idea what to expect when they saw Applejack was terrified. Her eyes were this big and she was crying. They all almost immediately said, Applejack, what's wrong? What happened? For the first few seconds, Applejack was silent. She couldn't even bring a word. So Sunset said once again, AJ, snap out of it. What's wrong? Pinkie. What about Pinkie? Hospital. Car accident. All her friends was just had a little bit concerned look at first, but when she heard those words, they all faced it. They realized Pinkie had been in a car accident, and they all was silent, except Fluttershy. She was crying her eyes out. Rainbow was terrified, but then she snapped out of it and said, AJ, how serious is she? But Applejack was silent. I I don't know. You don't know? But how did you be found out? Her sister Marble called me, said Applejack. And there was still silence. Fluttershy was crying in the background. The others were just staring, was just what to say to trying to find the right words. What can we do? There's nothing we can do, said Applejack. But then Fluttershy was still crying, but Twilight and said, we need to reach out to Derpy. She needs to know what happened. I will call her, said Applejack. I have her number. Alright, please inform us if something else happened. About what her condition will be. I promise, said Applejack. And that was the moment when Derpy was told from Applejack that same day. And she told her parents about this. And she didn't have to demand to be taken back home as soon as possible. Because when she told her that, her father said, put your coat on, and get in the car, we go there now. Her father drove as fast as he could back into town, and when she was told that the girl they had in the hospital was her girlfriend, even though despite she was even her family, but Pinkie's parents was there in the waiting room, and they allowed her to see her. But Pinkie, she was unconscious still. The doctor told that she may not even survive. She had at least several broken ribs, one punctured lung, a severe concussion, and one broken arm. Her condition was very, very critical. And according to the doctor, it may not seem well, but she may not even survive the night. But they would always be looking after her to monitor her condition over the night. Derpy, she was terrified. She may have gone to lose her own girlfriend and someone that she really cared about. When she heard that from the doctor, she just lost it. She fell to the ground on her knees, started crying in front of Pinkie's bed, and even the words could even make sense. But from what the words she said, please, Pinkie, don't go, please. She was been told by her parents but they would keep her informed about her conditions for the next couple of days, even though that her Pinkie's parents may think, may believe that she won't even make it, but they would never give up hope. So for the next couple of days, Pinkie was still unconscious and the critical conditions still. But after about 4 days, Derpy was at home. She barely ate, she barely slept, but she got a phone call from Marble. Marble informed Derpy that Pinkie had left ICU and was in a better condition, and now and she had awakened up. Derpy was well beyond happy about that. But she still knew that Pinkie may still have to be in the hospital for at least a couple of more weeks after this. So Derpy had asked her parents to take her to see her. When she got there, she was crying and saw that Pinkie was awake. In fact, she was smiling when she saw Derpy, and she walked up to Pinkie and hugged her as lightly as she could. And Pinkie said, "Derpy, I have been through worse. You know that." "I know, Pinkie, but promise me next time never be any such things happen again." Both Pinkie and Derpy laughed a bit. "Yeah, I will try. Doctor said I had to be in here for the next, said 2, 3 weeks at most, maybe more. I will be here to see you as often as I can," said Derpy. And in fact, for the next 3 weeks, Derpy went to see Pinkie almost every single day to make her update about what happened in her life and the schools when they start again. And even her friends came by from time to time as often as they could to see how she's feeling. And after about a month, Pinkie was allowed to leave the hospital and she went back home. But the doctor told her she was not allowed to go to school for at least another 2 more weeks to be in full recovered. So for the next 2 more weeks, Pinkie was spending at home. Derpy came out to see her though, which Pinkie's parents didn't mind. But after a month though, Pinkie had made a full recovery and had returned back to school. All her friends was really excited to see Pinkie again, and seeing her smiling made everyone else smile. Despite what she had been through, that she nearly lost her whole life. Just after the first test when she was back in school, she could see that some of the students was a bit sad to have heard about Pinkie. But as she stepped inside, all the students saw her and they saw that she was smiling, and they all smiled and spread quickly throughout the school. Everyone, including the staff, was relieved to see one of the best students that they had to be made such recovery. Even though the principal Celestia had asked Pinkie if she needed any more time to recover, but according to Pinkie's doctor said that she had made a full recovery, and even though she needed any, still had been given permission not to have any gymnastic class for at least for the next couple of more weeks, just to make sure, which Principal Celestia had granted. So Pinkie had made a recovery from such near life-ending scenario. Derpy was really excited to hear that Pinkie had pulled through. If she hadn't, Derpy had been such a miserable life. She would have lost her own first true love, and her life wouldn't have been the same if she had lost Pinkie. Pinkie and Derpy's relationship after that point remained strong. They made sure to try to avoid any serious accidents after this, which didn't which they both did. Several years later, after they had finished high school, Derpy was actually working at this this small cafe in the mall, while Pinkie has still maintained her job at the cafe she was working. And after they had been dating for another couple of more years, they actually started living together in an apartment which Derpy had put a renting for. And even after they had been together for about another, being total of 10, for about 8 years, Pinkie took with Derpy to the park where she proposed to her, and Derpy, she said yes immediately. She was really excited to be now to get married with Pinkie, despite what happened to Pinkie all those years ago at school. She was still happy to have found true love. Even at the wedding itself, Pinkie had asked Fluttershy to be her bridesmaid, and Derpy had asked her own sister Dinky to be her bridesmaid. Everyone had a great time at the wedding. Even old friends of both families could see how happy both Derpy and Pinkie were together. Even Twilight then said, "They are clearly made for each other." "That is so true," said Fluttershy, smiling. They even went to a small resort for about a week, which that her friends had somehow managed to arrange, and they just had a great time there. But after about they had been married for about 2 years, they wanted to spend time, and they wanted to have a family of their own. So they decided to adopt some children from a local adoption agency. They managed to adopt at least two daughters who were sisters, about 10 twins, and even 2 years later, they adopted a boy. Though there were always what happened, Pinkie hadn't been more happier to be with Derpy, despite what happened to her those years ago after the car accident. She realized if she had even survived, Derpy would not have been the same afterwards. She wouldn't have been the same. There's so much joy in her life. And even Derpy had said that the same thing to Pinkie. Because if she had lost her in a car accident, she had no idea how things would have been for her life. She may have stopped looking for a true love at all. She may have stopped even trying to date someone else. Pinkie herself was really excited to have found the true love of her life. Even after all this time, Derpy and Pinkie was really excited to be start dating back in school, and their lives was so bright for them. But then, when the car accident happened, when that took place, both their lives almost shattered because Pinkie was so close to being losing her own life, and Derpy. As she had mentioned to Pinkie before they even got married, if she had lost Pinkie, she would not she wouldn't have not even been dating anyone else after that. Losing Pinkie would be like losing a large part of her own heart, and that is something Derby could not even made it through. But she was just really happy that Pinkie made it and that she had survived the accident, despite knowing that she were a fact that she may not have even survived. But she was really happy at least that Pinkie proved the doctor's predictions wrong and that she made it. But what Pinkie told Derpy though, because she somehow heard Derpy's words, not to go, that she loved her. That made Derpy cry when she mentioned that, because she didn't exactly expect it that Pinkie would hear her, but for some reason, somehow, Pinkie did hear Pink Derpy. Those words made her fight to survive, to make her continue to live. Even after all this, Pinkie was really happy to be with someone like Derpy. Despite what happened, but they both had this goofy, funny personality, the love to bake, and especially now that they're married and having 3 children together, it is like a dream that came true to both of them. And this is how Derpy, Hoops, and Pinkie Pie found a true love and got a big family together. The end.